This is MRP. Yeah, that's right. Mama Rapano's Pizza. Class A service with a smile. Can I take your order? Okay. Right. Sure. Good. It's a large pizza with mushrooms. Check. Olives. Check. Pepperoni. Is that everything? Okay. That would be our 4049W. Let me check our pizza in process inventory status report. Hang on a minute. Boy, I'm sorry. The 4049W is not in stock at this time. We do have the 4374C. That's with mushrooms, artichokes, and feta cheese. No, huh? Okay. How about the 3210F? That's sausage, onions, and sardines? No? Okay. Well, I could pick the sardines off. Okay, I guess you got your head set on mushrooms and olives and pepperoni, huh? Well, no, that's going to be a special order. No, there's no extra charge for special orders, but we do have a variety of sizes to choose from. We've got small, medium, and large. We have family size. We have the personal size, the baby size, single serving. Right. We've got extra large, jumbo, king size, massive, mammoth, colossal, and yeah, we can make any size, any other custom size that you wanted. Large, fine. Large pizza. Okay. Hold on 1 minute, and I'm going to check the availability of our large pans on our tooling status list. Hang on a minute. Would extra large be okay? Great. Okay. Now let me give you some information on our quantity discounts. Yeah, we like when we set up a mozzarella cheese wheel on our graters. What we like to do is to use the whole wheel. Will that be any problem? Well, for extra large, that would be 75 pizzas. Okay. So you only wanted one pizza. Okay, so we're also talking less than truckload delivery quantities. Okay, you realize this is going to affect the price. Okay, well, I will get to that. Before I check the ingredient availability, let me check our pizza process routing, and I can schedule some time in our state-of-the-art pizza ovens. Okay, there's no problem there. We're all set on the on that. Now what I'm going to have to do here is explode our second and third level bills of material for the pizzas you wanted, and we'll see what the availability of the ingredients is. Okay, we've got the mushrooms. Pepperoni, oh boy, that's going to be a problem. What kind of delivery were you anticipating? 30 minutes on, I'm sorry, I got some static on the line here. It sounded like you said 30 minutes. You did. So we typically quote 2 weeks as our normal... Hello? Another order gone. My name's Kevin Prahad. I'm the director of our just-in-time manufacturing practice in the Midwest region. And I love pizza. I'm a pizza lover. But even I would not order pizzas if I had to put up with that. The thing that's happened, though, is that the pizza stores learned a long time ago that you can't run a pizza shop with forecasts and schedules and all those things that we in manufacturing are so used to running things with. They learned that if you make the pizza fast, if you can do the process in the time a customer will wait for it, then you can build anything you want. You can make anything you want and deliver it in a very timely manner. Now, in manufacturing, does it really need to be that much different? I work with a lot of different companies. Here's a panel for a truck, for the gas door around a truck. It took them 4 weeks to make this panel. There's not even a minute's worth of lead time in here. With much less lead time than there is in a pizza, it takes them 4 weeks to make it. Why? Because it sits around. They make them in big batches. They set up a long time, move them back and forth, in and out of the stock room. Here's a case for a pressure sensor. made in Ohio. It's 4 weeks, 5 weeks to fabricate this case. There's only 4 or 5 operations. Altogether, maybe 3 minutes of time. Maybe the plating adds a little bit more time. Why does it take 4 or 5 weeks to make something that has 3 or 4 minutes of process time in it? Think of the pizzas. Why can't they work that way? What I'm going to do today is to talk about just-in-time. I'm going to handle these things. And the way this started, the reason I'm here, is that at SME, the Society of Manufacturing Engineers asked me if I would come and talk and film a seminar on just-in-time. And what I told them was, great, no problem. I got it all set. I'll tell them JIT is an operating philosophy. It's a way you manufacture. It focuses on elimination of waste. Give them the whole premise on what JIT's all about. I'll give them a bunch of examples of companies who've done tremendous things with just-in-time. Who've reduced their lead times 90%, reduced their inventories 90%, got rid of their labor, cut their space, saved them all kinds of quality costs. And I'll tell them how to set up cells. Tell them how to set up some manufacturing cells. I'll tell them they've got to pull. They can't push anymore. They've got to pull. Then I'll tell them they have to do setup reduction. They have to reduce the time it takes them to set up. And finally, I'll throw in a quote from some Japanese guy to give the whole thing a little bit of credibility. And I'll say, are you ready for JIT? I'll challenge them. I'll say, are you guys ready for JIT? Can you make this happen? I'll get real tough. And they were just kind of shaking their heads. I could see they were saying, well, and I said, what's the matter? Well, this is great. I've done this for 3 years. I've been going around the Midwest telling people how to do this, telling them all the philosophy of just-in-time. And they said, well, if it's so great and you've been doing this for 3 years, how come you're always bemoaning the fact that we don't, that we're losing our manufacturing base? How come we're still losing it if this is so successful, if this is so great? And they had me there. They really had me. And I started to think about it. I started to think of what's wrong with the way just-in-time is sold. What's wrong? Why is it that there's so many people that don't do just-in-time or don't know what just-in-time is or know what it is and have chosen not to do it? What's the problem? So I started giving it a lot of thought. And I realized that the big problem with just-in-time is the way it's sold. It's the way people sell it. And maybe the way I sold it. I started thinking about it. And I came up with some reasons how to unsell just-in-time. That's really what we do. We unsell just-in-time to people. We tell them JIT is a philosophy. Now, I had philosophy in college, and it was not my most interesting experience. They talk about vague things like whether the chair is really there, whether the table is really there. Philosophy is not a cool thing. I've been in manufacturing for 10 years. I've never had a plant manager say to me, hey, let's go out after work and knock off a couple of philosophical treatises. This is not an interesting thing. People don't know what philosophy is. People say, we always tell people, JIT is not something you can buy in a can. People like to buy things in cans. We're used to buying products. Nobody likes vague things. People like real things, real products. And JIT is a real product. It is a genuine thing with techniques and methodologies. What else do we do wrong? This is a great one. We tell people JIT never ends. Never ends. You just keep working at it. You keep working at it. You keep working at it. Keep going on. Who wants to buy something that never ends? If you were going to have your house painted and you found the greatest painter in the world, did wonderful work, you loved his quality, the paints he was going to use, quoted you a good price, and then you said, well, how long will this take to do? And he said, well, I'll never finish. I'll just keep painting and painting and painting. You said, get out of here. I don't want you around forever. I want to see results. I want my house painted. I want it done. What else do we tell people? We set these projects up as phases. We say we're going to do phase 1, and then we're going to do phase 2, and phase 3, and phase 20, and phase 50. And people are saying, what is this? I'm a manufacturing guy. I'm on the shop floor. I want to see something happen. I want to see results. When do the results happen? And usually it's like phase 15. Then you'll actually see something on the shop floor. JIT doesn't have to be that way. JIT can be fast. You can go in and do things quickly. You don't have to have phase after phase after phase. This is a great one. This is real popular in the Midwest. People in the Midwest just are crazy about the Japanese. They love to be compared to the Japanese all the time, to have the Japanese thrown up in their face and say, yeah, the Japanese do that better, they do that better, they do that faster. So we use lots of terms. We use poka-yoke and kanbans and judoka, all these terms that nobody knows what they mean, and they're no better than the comparable American terms. People think it sounds impressive. I used to work for a materials manager when I was with the auto industry who went to Japan. He came back all fired up, and he got these judoka stickers, and he slapped them on all the fork trucks in the plant. This is a true story. And I said, why are those there? And he goes, well, that's just in time, and we're going to be just in time. And I said, that's not just in time. She said, okay, it means stop the line. And we had stopped the line on all our fork trucks. Which, if you had just used an American term or used some good, understandable term, that wouldn't have been a problem. Then we got the people out there who are saying, we tell people, batch sizes have to be 1. Your lead times have to be 0. You have to get down to 0 lead time. And people are saying, well, I can't have 0 lead time. I mean, my processes take time. Things have to dry. I have to press something. It's going to take a few seconds at least. And they say, no, you got to drive to perfection. The real purists out there. The quality has to be perfect. All these things. This turns people off. People hear these things and they say, forget it. I'm not going to do just in time. I don't need all this heartache. And this is why you get people standing and looking at the prospect of going off into just in time or continuing as the way they are. And it reminded me of this Woody Allen line where he says, I feel like I'm at a crossroads in my life. One road leads to annihilation and extinction. The other road leads to hopelessness and despair. God, give me the wisdom to choose the right route. And I think that's what a lot of the managers feel like. They're faced with this, somebody sells them this just in time and they're faced with the prospect of doing that and they think, oh my God, I don't want to do this. The way to sell just in time is to tell people what it is. It's the simplest thing in the world. It's lead time reduction. It says, learn to make things faster. Learn to make your product as quickly as you can, just like a pizza. Make the pizza, put it in the oven, and ship it. Don't build it in advance. Don't forecast. Don't build up a lot of inventory, a lot of non-value-added lead time. Focus on one thing. Focus on lead time, and all the other good will happen. The working process will decline dramatically because working process is there to support lead time. If it takes you a month to make something, you'll have a month's worth of lead time in the process. Finished goods will go down because you may not need to build to stock anymore. Maybe you can build to order just like the pizza places, and now you don't have any finished goods inventory. Raw materials can go down because you can do the same thing with your suppliers you've done to yourself. You can pull from your suppliers just when you need something. Floor space goes down because you don't have all that working process taking up the floor space anymore. Indirect labor goes down because just-in-time focuses on eliminating non-value-adding things. And that's what most of the indirect labor is. It's non-value-adding. And rework can go down, too, because you catch problems faster. You don't build big batches. A lot of good can happen just by eliminating lead time. And you eliminate lead time by eliminating the things that don't add value. The things that add value in a manufacturing shop, they're the things that make the product. They're the operations that mold and shape and shear and press and paint and assemble. Packaging, too. And packaging adds value because you can't very well ship a tube of toothpaste without the tube. So there's certainly value in packaging in a lot of cases. Things that don't add value, you know what doesn't add value in your organizations. Sorting, moving things around. As a customer, when I buy a product, I don't care if they moved it. I don't care if they moved it 50 miles around the plant. I'm not buying it for that reason. I don't care if they counted it. I don't care if they inspected it. Paperwork, there's the number one non-value added. What paper adds value in a manufactured product? Those are the kind of things that just-in-time tries to eliminate. There's a simple way of thinking of just-in-time, and apply this to your plants. If your biggest customer wanted it, could you make it today? Your biggest customer calls you and says, I got to have this. I got to have it. Can I have it today, in a couple days, whatever makes sense in your organizations? And most people will say yes. Most people will say, yeah, I can provide it. I can provide it today because they're important. I'm going to disrupt my whole production process. I'm going to break down machines. I'm going to move things around. But by God, I'll get that order out today. The question you have to ask yourself, and it's a test of whether you're really just in time or not, if your smallest customer wanted it, would you make it today? You know you could because you could do it for your largest customer. Would you do it for your smallest customer? And most people will say no. They'll say it's not worth it. It's not worth the hassles. It's not worth all the problems of breaking down everything and disrupting the plant to do it. That's the secret to just-in-time. If you run just-in-time, everything flows through as quickly as it can. Biggest customers don't matter anymore. Smallest customers, it doesn't matter the size. Every order is going to, once it hits the floor, is going to go first in, first out, as quickly as it can be done, and that's it. How is a big pizza order handled? I mean, a big customer, somebody who orders every night, do they handle it any differently? The guy calls every night for a pizza, and he calls on Wednesday, and I'm at the counter. Do I handle it any differently? No. I say, well, fine, I'm making it. 30 minutes from now, it'll be there. So you don't do it any differently. I like to talk about just-in-time purists versus just-in-time pragmatists. I feel I'm a pragmatist. I spend all my time on the shop floor. I came out of manufacturing on the shop floor. That's where JIT works. I like to say, how many JIT purists does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is one, but it's in theory because they never really get around to doing it. They're too busy thinking about it, writing the books, coming up with the fancy articles on how to do just-in-time. They never get around to doing anything. That's the problem. I tend to think of myself as a jet pragmatist. I've worked in a lot of different environments and made jet work in a lot of different environments. And I think that's the key. I've got some of the companies. These are very diverse products on here, yet the same principles have always applied. I worked in a baseball bat factory.
It's game time somewhere in the USA. What game is this? Well, we all know that answer. There's only one possible answer. Baseball. The sport that proves every year its right to the proud title, the great American game. And that's why baseball is the game for us Americans. All of us.
I remember that when JIT was first brought to our factory, a fellow named Kevin Prod came in to introduce JIT to our plant, and most of the people were very hesitant about wanting to get involved in it, get active in JIT, and most of us around there didn't think that it would work. We didn't think it had a chance.
When I first heard about the just-in-time program, my first thought was I probably wouldn't be here much longer. My thing over when I was in the golf, I always said JIT stand for jobs in trouble. Jobs in trouble.
It took them 19 days to make this baseball bat. 19 days. You know, what's happening to this? You're turning it, you're sanding it, you're finishing it, you're burn branding or foil branding the name and the emblem. 19 days later, it came out as a bat. Well, they implemented just in time, and today they can do this in about a day. It takes about a day to run a batch through. And that's a big difference. It's a big difference when you're Wade Boggs standing out there and you don't have a bat. That's a major difference, and it wasn't magic. It was done with just basic just-in-time principles. Shotguns, totally different product, much lower volumes than baseball bats, maybe 300 a day. Same principles apply. Complicated product, has a lot of metalworking, a lot of woodworking, heat treat, a whole assortment of activities. Same principles apply. It took them 16 weeks to make a shotgun. Now they can make it in 3 weeks, and someday they'll be able to make it in 1 week. When you can make things that quickly, you don't have to worry about the forecast anymore. You don't have to think about making it to stock, guessing what somebody's going to want. You can make it to order. A sporting goods distributor calls and says, I want so many shotguns. You say, fine, I'll make them. You'll be next in line. I'll make them. They'll be out the door in 3 weeks, and you'll have them there. Maybe they'll wait for that. Machine tools, very complicated, very low volume, no two the same. Everything is different. No repetition whatsoever, yet the same principles of just-in-time apply. Liquid detergents. There's a company that makes 25 million cases of liquid detergents at the plant I worked in. Make them in batches. They make big batches. They run these for 2 weeks, these for a week, these for 2 weeks, run these for a week. The problem is, who buys stuff that way? Well, people don't run out and for 2 weeks suddenly only buy this, and then all of a sudden all the people in America buy this for a week, and all the people in America buy this. People buy everything every day. Every one of these gets purchased every day. So that was the key. That was the key, was learning how do you make every one every day. They carried 45 days worth of inventory to support that. Now they carry 3 or 4 days worth of inventory because they make every one of these every day. Some of it was setup time. A lot of the problem was setting up blow molding machines to make bottles like this. It took them 18 hours to set up a line. Now it takes less than half an hour. It wasn't magic. Some of the things were real simple. They used to make them in all sorts of orders, depending on what the forecast said and what production control said. They make them in whatever sequence they were told. Now they make them in a very defined sequence. They make light colors and then darker colors. Because if you go from light to dark, you don't have to clean the blow molding machines out as fairly as if you go from dark to light. So they go yellow, orange, red, blue. Next day they do it again. Set the machines up. Now they can make everything every day and respond to everybody's needs on a daily basis. That's a huge change when you're talking about millions and millions of cases and you're talking about storing 45 days worth. Service parts, truck bodies, pressure sensors, castings in general. We do a lot of work in foundries. iron foundries and aluminum foundries, same principles apply. Sometimes the approach is different, but the same principles consistently apply. And in my years, I guess 10 years in manufacturing of working, being out on the shop floor, being out in a continuous variety of customers, I probably heard every excuse why just-in-time won't work. People say, it won't work because we have non-repetitive production. We don't make the same thing one after another after another.
Well, just prior to just-in-time coming into our way of doing things, we were a batch-operated manufacturing facility. We had very little, from a manufacturing point of view, very little contact with our customer. So we ran in large groups, long setup times, had a tremendous amount of work in process inventory, and whatever happened to fall out at the end of the day fell out and then was distributed to the customer. So that's the way we were in the environment that we operated in just prior to meeting Kevin.
They think, well, just-in-time does that. Because, you know why? Because the people who write the articles always write about repetitive production because it's easier. It's easier to write and illustrate. It's hard to talk about machine tools and making JIT work, so they don't write the articles that way. But JIT works in any environment. It doesn't have to be repetitive. It can work in any environment. People tell me their equipment is too old.
When JIT was first coming in, I was with Kevin. I worked steady with him in 7 or 8 meetings, but I felt that he was just asking for the impossible. Our machinery was old. It's not going to perform a 96 load when we used to do a 432 load. I told him, you know, me and him, man to man, I said, you're asking for the impossible. Our machinery won't handle it.
I've worked with suppliers that had equipment from the early 20th century. Even one supplier had some equipment from the 1890s. It worked fine. Old equipment is good equipment. Old equipment is easy to set up usually. It's usually very well built. We've actually had plants where they had very high, brand new, high-tech, state-of-the-art equipment that we took out of service because it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. In some companies, the longest lead time item in manufacturing is writing the NC programs for the NC machine. We've taken NC equipment out of service. Don't use it. You run it in a manual mode and run fast and you don't need it. I'm not saying you always do that, but that's happened. Just-in-time can work very well with old equipment. It can't work with bad equipment. If you have lousy equipment that doesn't work, that doesn't repeat, well, then it's not going to work. But with good old equipment, it'll work. People have said our plant's too old. Just-in-time works great in old plants. I've worked in plants from the 1800s, and they're fine. In fact, it tends to shrink things, and maybe the limitations of multiple stories in a plant go away. People have said they can't influence their suppliers.
Our suppliers is very important to the success of our JIT, and we are just now really getting into working with some of our suppliers, and their reaction has not been negative at this point, but more or less standing off and saying, well, I don't think we can do JIT. But we just experienced a discussion yesterday with one of our major suppliers and showed him the stockless film, stockless production film, and his reaction to that was very good. So I think the biggest asset we have with our suppliers is getting them in here.
I don't believe that. I think everybody can influence his supplier. I don't think there's many suppliers out there who are willing to say to anybody, I don't want your business. I mean, maybe the owner of a company can say that, but there's no way somebody taking an order can say that. There's no way a salesman is going to say that. There's no way his boss is going to say that. And very few presidents ever say to anybody, hey, get out of here, I don't want your business. No matter how small they are, people need business, and you can't treat your customers that way, and everybody knows it. People say, well, I have a union. I can't do just-in-time. I have a union.
I'm also the president of our local union 3931 of the United Steelworkers of America. We represent approximately 165 people in the bargaining unit here at H&B. I think since the Deming program and the JIT program has come to Hillock and Bradsby, our union and Hillock and Bradsby management people have tried and worked at getting along much better than we have ever in the past.
So what? Almost every plant I work with is a union plant. That plant was steel workers. I work with UAWs and machinists and molders, you name it. And unions love just-in-time because it puts the focus on the shop floor. It gets them involved. It says, we're not going to run this plant anymore with a bunch of black boxes in a computer room and a bunch of reports that somebody gives to you that don't really reflect what you want to do. It says, the floor is going to run itself. The floor is going to make the basic scheduling decisions and run the plant. I've had people tell me they don't want to do JIT because their cost accountants don't want it. To me, that's a reason to do it.
The company didn't believe us. But just in time, we'll show you. Kevin's first idea was to build another hothouse. The union, or the maintenance said we can't do it. Jack said it's a little too expensive. We have a new hothouse today because it showed where we needed, we had to have it. Because we ran the timber up too quick, and we had to have the extra of it.
We don't question anymore a capital expenditure that reduces work in process. We don't ask how much will it cost or how much work in process it will do. It's just, will it reduce work in process? And if it does, we'll probably implement it, because every bit of work in process we take out gives us more reaction to our customer. And we didn't have that concept before.
You're not there to serve the cost accountants. The cost accountants are there to serve you. They're a service. I work with financial people all the time since I'm part of a financial company. But boy, if they don't want to do it, to me that's almost a reason to do it. I've developed over time kind of a pragmatist approach to just-in-time. And some of the things that I've learned is that just because you have a simple product doesn't mean that your design for just-in-time is going to be simple. It could still be a very complicated design. A bat is a simple product, but it's complicated because it's complicated by the fact that wood dries at different rates, that weight is very important. Wade Boggs might want a bat that's heavy, the same bat that's a little bit heavier than one that Tony Gwynn wants. And so there's a lot of complexity even in simple products. Buffers, people, the purists say no buffers. You can't have buffers anywhere. I'm not hung up on buffers. The whole point is to manufacture better and with less cost. If you have to have a little bit of buffer between operations, so what? Set a goal to keep getting it down, but so what? If it takes a buffer to make it work, that's fine. No layout is perfect. People want to beat the layouts to death. They want to spend months coming up with a perfect layout. That defeats the purpose of just-in-time. Just-in-time is continuous improvement. You start something, you get it in place, and you get a little better all the time. And you get your people on the shop floor doing it. People are saying, hey, this layout's not right. Could we turn this machine this way and this machine this way? That's what you want. That's ideal. That's great. Listen to your operators. It's so critical.
I think the biggest advantage for our employees working in a just-in-time environment is it gives them an opportunity to feel good about coming to work and get them involved in solving problems that before they were sort of had to put up with on a day-to-day basis and didn't have any input in trying to solve. Just-in-time gives them that opportunity. It gives them an opportunity to expose problems much quicker, and it gives them an opportunity to get directly involved in finding solutions to those problems.
The operators have to be listened to. Sometimes they're going to say things that are wrong. Listen to them anyway. Say, okay, let's try it. I mean, obviously, if they want you to go into a different business, then you may not want to listen to them. But if they want to try something turned a different way, and you're sure in your heart of hearts it's wrong, maybe if it's cheap to do, you should try it anyway. They'll quickly see it's wrong if it is, and you might be surprised. The companies that I've worked in that have been the most successful are the ones who were most religious about listening to their operators, making people on the floor part of the process. The push-pull thing, purists say you gotta pull. It's got to be 100% pull from beginning to end. Well, that's not always practical.
When we initially started JIT, we probably started at 2 smaller loads. We started at 96 bats still load. And we had to drop off of it for a couple months because we weren't filling the orders fast enough for our demand. So after the vacation period, then I came back and I changed it to 180 a load. And that's the load size we're running now, and that's worked much better.
That's not always practical, and I don't mind if maybe we push some parts into a bank and then we pull out of there. Maybe in one company I worked with, they made fan assembly blades. It was very hard to change the setup times on the big presses that originally blanked these things. So we filled these to a buffer. We built those to stock. Then they pulled them out and did the final operations and assembled them into fan blade packages and shipped them. So it was a little bit of push, a little bit of pull. That worked fine. There was no problem with that. That's fine with me. These things make a lot of sense, and yet I told you before, the way people sell just in time, and you wonder, why are they doing it? Well, there's a lot of good people out there selling just in time. There's a lot of good people working with companies making it happen, but there's some rotten tomatoes out here. There's some rotten tomatoes out in doing it, and those are the ones you got to be careful of. You got professors. Professors are a really good example. Professors are out there trying to make things complicated. They're trying to write books. They're trying to teach classes. They want to talk to their other professors and come up with the most complicated solutions. They love complexity. So professors are really anathema in a lot of ways to just in time. You know, we stress simplicity, and they're stressing complexity. So we want to get rid of those professors. What else we got? Here we got some MBAs. They're even worse. You know, I guess if there's anybody that's worse than professors, it's the MBAs. Because they come out of college, they've never seen a plant, but they read a lot of books, and they don't want to make things complicated. They don't want to make things simple. They just want to make money. So they want to be dramatic. They want to come up with dramatic results, and they don't want to take the time to understand the process. And JIT is very data-driven. You've got to understand the shop floor and understand your people. So we'll get rid of those MBAs. Here we got another one of my favorites, the MRP converts. These are the people that have always sold MRP. They've always marketed MRP, and they're seeing, whoa, you know, MRP, there's a lot of people saying that's not what I want to do. I want to do JIT instead. So they've gotten on the JIT bandwagon. This is a great example I got in the mail. Here's one of the best-known MRP companies sent me this little package saying, yes, we've evolved. This is our questionnaire. In 1977, it used to have 20 questions. Now it's got 31 pages. These guys are going in the wrong direction. The whole point is simplicity, not 31 pages of questions to figure out what you're doing. So we got to get rid of those MRP converts. Next one, next rotten tomato. The guys that have been to Japan. These are the ones, I don't know, whatever they did before they were in the U.S., they go to Japan, they come back, and they have seen the light. They have seen the light. They are going to tell you how to manufacture. And that's their biggest claim to fame. They got it on their business cards, been to Japan. They work for the Been to Japan company, and they're out there. So we'll get rid of those guys. Because this isn't Japan. Oh, we got another one of my favorites, the computer companies. These are the guys who used to sell tons of MRP, and now they looked at all the reports and said, whoa, MRP sales are down. We need JIT software. You know, never mind the fact that the whole point of just-in-time is to get away from complexity, get away from the need for computers, to minimize the need for them if you can. These guys are selling just-in-time packages, and these JIT packages look suspiciously like MRP packages to me. So we're going to get rid of the computer guys. And finally, our last rotten tomato here, maybe the funniest one of all, these are the material handling companies. These are the companies that used to sell stacker systems, and they've got warehouses full of warehouses, really, and they've got stackers in their warehouses saying, boy, how do we sell these? They say, we're going to have to sell these as part of just-in-time. We're going to make just-in-time warehouses. Now, if that's not an oxymoron, I don't know what is. Just-in-time warehouses. They call them flow-through warehouses or integrated warehouses. But these guys are just trying to get on the just-in-time bandwagon and unload their hardware. So we'll get rid of them, too. Those are our rotten tomatoes. That's why we've got the problems. That's why there's a lot of people out there pitching just-in-time. And if you've got bad feelings about it, it might be because of that. It might be because of their approach. What I believe, after going through all this thought process, and hearing the SME come back and say, we don't want you to do a traditional seminar, what I came up with was the idea that JIT, which is a lead time reduction program, meaning production should happen fast, JIT should happen fast. Why should a lead time reduction program that's designed to make your products be built quickly take months and months and months and years to do? It should happen fast. What we've got to do is take the non-value added out of a JIT implementation. And that's what I'm focusing on. JIT should happen fast for reasons. First of all, time is money. The longer you take to do it, the longer you spend implementing just-in-time, the more it's going to cost you. It's as simple as that. It takes a lot of time. It's going to cost you more. Secondly, management has short attention spans. Now, they don't wait forever. They kind of say, hey, how's our JIT program going? We started it last week. What's happening? A month later, 2 months later, they say, they pick up a book on some new program. They say, let's try this instead. I'm not seeing anything coming out of JIT. If you don't show results quickly, management will tire of the program. Even more so, the people on the floor will tire of it. If they don't see results, what seems like a month in an office seems like an eternity on the shop floor. Another thing is if you take a long time with the program and you approach it really cautiously, you're bound to fail. You make it easy to fail. Back in the 1400s or 1300s or whatever it was, when Prince Henry was running his navigator school and he was trying to get around the Cape of Africa here, they set up a mechanism to fail. They said, okay, go as far as you can down the coast. When you don't feel you can go any further, stop, build a little tower, and come back. And that'll signal the next group that's how far you got, and they can try to get a little bit further. Sounds okay, but what it is a mechanism to fail. It took them a long, long time to work their way down the coast because they had an easy out. They knew at any point, hey, there's a tower, we can go a little bit further and stop. Christopher Columbus didn't have the option of building a tower in the middle of the Atlantic, so he made it in one shot. He couldn't do it. So if you set up mechanisms to fail, this very cautious approach to doing just in time, a little at a time, and if it ever looks bad, you stop, you will fail. If you do it fast, if you do it gung-ho and rush out and do it, at least you eliminate that ease of failing. This is the most important one to me. I obviously have fun in my job. I mean, I think things should be fun. There's no one has said that going to a manufacturing company has to be drudgery. Make the program fun. And just in time can be fun. And if you do it right and do it fast, you can have a lot of fun in the process. So what I came back with SME was, I came back to them and said, okay, not only you wanted me to do implementation instead of theory, fine, I'm going to do implementation, but I'm going to do it in 48 hours. I'm going to tell people how you can implement just in time in 48 hours. And they said, wow, 48 hours, let's see, that's 8 hours to a shift, that's 6 days. What could you do in 6 days? I said, no, not 6 shifts. I'm talking about 48 continuous hours. I'm going to tell these people how your company can start at 7 o'clock one day and work continuously for 48 hours and implement just in time. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to walk you through that process. Now, are you going to go back to your company and do that? Maybe not. Probably not. But in fact, in some ways, the 48 hours maybe is more of an allegory for doing it fast. But we'll see. We'll see. Think about your own company. Think what you can do. Think what you can do. Think what you can do. Do in 48 hours. We're going to do a lot. We're going to do a lot of detailed, specific things. We're going to implement preventive maintenance. We're actually going to implement some preventive maintenance. We're going to do setup reduction. We're going to reduce the time it takes to set up equipment. We're going to move equipment. We're going to actually relocate equipment, maybe set up some basic cells in 48 hours. It doesn't take forever to move a piece of equipment. You're not going to pour concrete and move presses and build foundations in 48 hours, but there's a lot of simple equipment that can be moved in a very, very short time. We're going to reduce inventory. We're actually going to see inventory reductions. We're going to streamline the production control process in our 48-hour period. We're going to simplify the manufacturing process. We're going to actually implement uniform plant loading, a basic part of just-in-time. We're going to deproliferate the product line. If you've got a company that's got all kinds of products, they'll make them in every color, every shape, every size. We're going to deproliferate that in our 48-hour period. We're going to do some workplace improvement. We're going to do some cross-training. You've got to start at some time. Just-in-time requires cross-training. It requires people to know how to do multiple jobs. We're going to do some of that. We're going to get the employees involved. We're going to start basic employee involvement programs. Start some co-op contracting. This won't work if your suppliers aren't on board with you. And we're going to do lead time reduction. We're going to reduce the time it takes to make the product. There's a lot to do in 48 hours. There's more detail than that. We're going to do some even more specific things. The way I like to illustrate what happens in a just-in-time program is through this concept of you're looking to the future, and you've got competition. You have to get across this big body of water. It's a big, turbulent, shark-infested body of water. That's the only way you can get to the future. You know it's coming. You've had the warnings. What just-in-time says is we're going to build a bridge over that. Other people will say, well, hey, you don't need a bridge. Just hop in my boat. Hop in my short-interval scheduling boat. Hop in my opt boat. There's a good one. There's the classic black box technique that's not on the market anymore. Hop in my MRT boat, and I'll take you across. That's fine, but don't take me along for the ride, because I don't want to be in those waters in that little boat, which is only doing one thing and not very well. What I'd rather do is build a bridge, a big, solid, permanent bridge that's built on some fundamentals, and that'll take me across. That's what just-in-time is. These are kind of the fundamental elements of a just-in-time program. The concept of uniform plant loading. What that means basically is build the way you sell. Just like the pizza company. Make the way they sell. Your customer orders something, make it. Don't make big quantities. Don't guess what somebody's going to do. Make just the way you sell. Build at the rate that you sell. If you sell 1,000 a day, build 1,000 a day. If you sell 10,000 a month, build 10,000 a month. If you sell 50 different varieties in a month's time, build 50 different varieties in a month's time. That's what uniform plant load is all about. Pull scheduling is saying don't develop complicated programs that tell everybody what to do next. Set up very simple mechanisms, visibility on the shop floor, and pull your production through. Pull it, and that's the signal for that operator to do some more. And he pulls something, and that's the signal for somebody else to do some more. And you can make pulls work whether you got low volume or high volume, repetition or non-repetition. Process flow. Usually you have to change the way the product flows in a just-in-time plant because most plants aren't set up on product lines. They tend to be set up on functional lines. Flexible changeover. You've got to have the ability to set up when you want, to set up fast in the quantities that you want. Housekeeping. You've got to have a clean, orderly plant. You've got to have a plant where everything works, where housekeeping is really maintenance too, where the equipment works. It does what it's supposed to do. You have to have suppliers. They're kind of the cable that holds this roadway up. The bridge wouldn't be very good without the suppliers. You've got to work with your suppliers. I usually tell people, don't work with them on day one. Get your act together so you understand what you need and then go to your suppliers. Because if you do it too soon, you may undermine all the credibility you have.
Our suppliers' involvement in JIT with us began very soon after we announced that we were going to get involved in JIT. Our purchasing agents said, that's great. We will have a big fair. We'll have a big JIT fair. We'll invite all our suppliers in, and we'll tell them that we're now a JIT company, and they'd better respond. And I said, what are you going to respond with? They couldn't answer that question. So we didn't have the fair, and we decided to make our own house in order before we went out to attack our suppliers. We read how important the suppliers were to feeding parts just in time to factories. Yes, we believe that's going to happen. We see it now, today, 3 years later, the importance of it. But we really couldn't attack the problem until we knew what we wanted, until we knew how JIT would really affect us, until we could go to our suppliers and assure him that we wouldn't be changing the schedule every day, that we wouldn't be calling up and wanting rush orders. Until we could get our place settled and know that we couldn't do that anymore, we didn't feel that they could react favorably to us. The first reason we had for implementing JIT was quality. Quality we had seen from imports, and quality we compared amongst our own products. The imports were gaining on us, and we needed to continue to improve our quality if we were going to stay alive in our markets. And we feared the price problems with imports, and we knew we were always going to be saddled with a price problem, but we had to come across to our customers that perceived quality. So everything we did was really concerned with quality. We didn't look at many other areas of JIT until later, but quality was the first thing we looked at. And after we started investigating JIT further, we found these great reductions that are possible in space and inventory. Inventory became a very important consideration to us when we looked at our timber operation and all of the tremendous amount of factory trucks full of timber. And when we started adding that up, it was a significant amount of dollars that we felt that we could use elsewhere in the company, and we needed to use elsewhere in the company. The space, after investigating space, we found that we could reduce in unbelievable percentages the space that we were using. And we didn't have a clear idea of where we were going to use the space, but we knew that if we reduced it, we could take that space and use it elsewhere, and use even the space we were using, we could move it, improve it, or change it much better than the space that we had employed before. The next thing that we looked at was the profitability. We hadn't really considered that JIT would increase our profitability other than reduced inventory costs, but then we started coupling the improved quality, the cost of quality, and we found that there was a possibility of really improving our profit by just improving our quality. And the thing that we considered probably the least, that was sort of an add-on perhaps, was employee involvement. We had been involved with Deming for 2 years, and we looked at this as a vehicle for our employees to get involved in the process of change. We knew that we had to change, and we felt, after thinking about it some, that the JIT would give us a good vehicle to work with them on.
I came out of the auto industry, and we were great at telling, we thought just-in-time meant go to your suppliers and tell them to ship every day. That's what we thought. That's what I told people. I called suppliers and said, we got to have that every day. And they'd say, well, it's only a quarter of a truck. And I said, nope, we got to have it every day. We couldn't even unload the trucks every day. We were backing up the trucks. They're sitting in the yard. The suppliers thought we were stupid. We were, because we tried to do just-in-time and get them involved and ask them for things that we weren't ready to handle. And we didn't even understand what we needed. It takes a while. You also need, just-in-time is a big program. There's a lot going on in a just-in-time program. So you got to do some organization. You got to do some planning, some training. We're going to do all that in 48 hours as an illustration, but that's an important part of it, and people tend to downplay that.
What worked for us in our persuading our people in JIT was to visit factories, visit places that had successful implementations, and they could see for themselves that it, number one, it can be done, and number two, that they can do it themselves, basically, with a little outside help. And third is the tremendous results that can be had. Those things were really visible in the facilities we went to see.
The advice I would give to other manufacturers wanting to get into JIT would be a very strong program on communications and educating of the program of what JIT is all about before actually getting into it. I think that if you start forcing JIT, Deming, or anything else down people's throats, you're going to really have a serious problem. You have to reach that critical mass of people as far as educating is concerned before you can really start to move, and I think that's where we were successful in the fact that in the Deming program, we reached out to the critical mass.
If you haven't done your homework and prepared your people and actually mean that you, and with sincerity, that they are part of this team, part of this management team, part of this company team, part of the customer team, you're not going to be very successful. I think that you should reconsider if in fact you want to go just in time, if you have an adversarial relationship.
I talked about all the things that we are going to do. These are some that we're not going to do in 48 hours. These are some of the areas we're just not going to get involved with. We're not going to get involved with quality. Quality is great. It's important. It's very valuable. You got to do it. But, the quality people kind of think their work is too important to rush. I think it's too important to do too fast. So we're not going to try to do them in 48 hours. We're not going to try and get them involved in this. Maybe we'll use them. Maybe we'll get them involved. Maybe we'll get a lot of these people involved in the program just so they get an honest day's work. But we're not going to try to change the quality program in the plant. We're not going to change the systems. The systems people think their work is too complicated to do fast. Quality people might think it's too important. Systems think it's too complicated. You can't do systems fast. You can't do anything in 48 hours. The accounting people think that we have no business asking them to do anything in 48 hours. I mean, that's their world. Don't ask us. Personnel, they wouldn't even understand the question. So we're going to leave those parts out of our 48-hour program. We've got to establish kind of a mission control. There's going to be a lot of people running around. They need some place to touch base. There's going to be a big team to make this happen, and they need some place to touch base. They need a lot of things at mission control to make them comfortable. They're going to need some meals and some coffee because they're going to be there 48 hours. Maybe they need some PCs if they're going to need to access data or some computer support. And maybe you need some cots if you want people to stay up for 48 hours. They might need to take a rest a little bit. You got to pick the team. You have to get some really good team set up, and I'll talk about what those would be. I would recommend giving people kind of an introduction to just-in-time. Tell them what it is, so you're not trying to get them to understand what this is all about on the big day that you kick it off. So you're going to need kind of an introduction to start explaining to people what this is all about. What are the concepts of just-in-time? It's really important that people understand what it is you mean when you say just-in-time, because you'll find when you go to your people that there's a lot of your plant people have a totally different notion of what you mean, and communication will break down, and you won't get what you want. The problem with something that when people are trying to communicate and they don't have common terms is there can be a lot of misunderstanding. And that's why it's important to do your introduction to just-in-time. It's important that people understand what it is you're talking about. When you say just-in-time, it's lead time reduction, it's not head count reduction. That's a major thing to get them to understand.
Our average length of service here right now is 28 years. Our average age is 52 years, so there's a lot of culture that's built into the way that we've done things over the years. And as a result, anytime a new face comes on the scene, it opens up that exposure and people wonder why. What we had to do then was back off for a little while and go through some sort of explanation and training as to what just-in-time was all about, and tried to show them that it was not intended to replace the Deming philosophy, but to complement it. And from that, we led into training classes to try to bring this about. I think one of the key things with just-in-time is how you lay it out and how you plan your first approach to put it in, whether it be to put it in a union shop or a non-union shop. I think the biggest advantage is if it's going to go into a union shop, you have to involve union leadership from the very beginning. You have to make them aware of why you're doing this and the importance that it has to the organization as a whole and to the job security of the employees. If you're putting it in a non-union shop and you're just in touch with employees, I think the same thing applies. You just erase one level there. I think you have to do the same job. You have to go and do a good job of introducing it to employees and make them aware that it's something that's going to be good for them, and let them see firsthand that they have an opportunity to make input and solve some problems that are going to affect them every day.
You're going to have to provide some provisions, coffee, some food, some cots, all those things that you need to make that happen. Certainly you're going to want to cancel all the activities going on in the plant, because not production, but any special activities, United Way, fund drives, blood drives, all that stuff that tends to take people's time. There won't be time for that. It's going to be a hectic 48 hours. So you don't want to be doing all that other stuff. You might want to let your contractors know if they had planned any work in the plant that you're going to be running around and you're going to need access to a lot of resources, that this might be a bad time to be doing that kind of stuff. Just put the whole plant on alert so they know what's happening. The other things you got to do is some upfront planning. You want to do a little bit of planning so you're not like these guys in the desert spending a lot of time trying to go somewhere only to find halfway that it's not someplace you want to go to. Make sure that you're focusing on a plant that's an active plant that's going to stay in business. Don't do a lot of work on a plant that you're going to close in 6 months. Recognize that you're going to put a lot of effort into this, and you want to see some good results from it. Stress to people these fundamentals. If you really want to do basic JIT training at its most basic, teach people these 5 things. This, to me, is the fundamentals of just-in-time. Teach people to do these things. Recognize that JIT is a problem-solving approach. JIT is designed to expose problems, make it impossible for you to live with them, and solve them as a result. Teach people to solve problems. Don't teach people to solve symptoms. There's a big difference. I came out of the auto industry, and we were very good at solving symptoms. And part of the reason was that our plants were big and complicated, and frequently we got parts from somebody that a sister division we had no control over, and we couldn't solve the problems. We couldn't even see them. A great example, I worked in an engine plant in Pontiac. I worked in an engine plant that machined, where we machined a 2.5-liter engine. We used to have a problem with some of the castings coming over from the foundry division without holes. A certain hole would be missing. It should have been there. It should have been cast into the process. It wasn't there. So somebody came up with the idea, an engineer came up with the idea, why don't we put a probe on the transfer line? Then it goes in before you machine it, because if you try to machine something, you're going to just clean it out a little bit, and there's no hole there. You hit the block, you knock it offline, you goof up the transfer machine, now you have a problem. So this guy said, okay, I can deal with that. I'm going to put this probe in there. It's going to go in, look for the hole. If it hits the hole, it'll just come back out and send a signal. Go ahead and do it. If it doesn't hit a hole, then it'll send a signal, bad block. We'll put some shuttle automation, shuttle this block off the line. This is expensive stuff. This is not cheap to do this. A lot of money in the hardware to make this happen. Are you solving the problem? No, you're solving the symptom. So what happens, because machines aren't perfect, transfer machines shift, and you get the probe in there, the line shifts, the probe breaks off. The probe went in, sends a good signal, there's a hole there, well, except now it's filled with the probe. Now you go to machine it and you get this case-hardened probe, you tear up your tools trying to clean out that thing, now you have a real problem. This guy said, no problem, I know how to handle that. I'm going to put a little probe detector in. What it's going to do is it's going to detect to see if the probe is still there after it extracts. If it breaks off, there won't be a probe there. The point is, by this time they've probably got detectors in place. The point is that they weren't solving the problem. They were solving the symptom. The problem is the casting process is goofing up the holes. Fix the problem. So you teach people that. You teach people to do simple things. Are the results simple? Everything should be simple. Simple solutions are better. That's what you want people to understand. Not complicated solutions. Not computer reports. Simple, very simple, visible kind of thing. So everybody in the plant can see if something's working well. Everyone can see when it isn't. Everyone knows the results all the time. I worked with the bat company, and one of the simplest things we did, everyone complained, we have a wood problem. That's our problem, is that we can't dry wood fast enough. We never get the wood we need. Well, nobody knew what was happening with these wood drying ovens. They were there. Nobody had any idea what was in them when they were coming out. The guys in the lab did. They ran it. So what we did was to put up big signs on every drying oven that said, this is what's in here. This is when it went in here. These were big signs. These are like 6-foot signs. There's so many pieces in here that went in on this date. This is when they're supposed to come out. This is today's humidity. This is today's temperature. Now everybody in the plant every day walks by those, and they know what's in that kiln. And magically, the problem went away. And I think it was just because of the visibility, because everybody now saw that every day. I think that solved the problem all by itself. Changes are a part of every manufacturing environment, and if you put in solutions that don't support changes, there's going to be problems. You've got to recognize that things are going to change, and you have to be able to support it. You also have to recognize there are no perfect solutions. You're going to want to improve them. You want to continuously get better and better and better. Don't try to come up with the perfect solution and expect it to last forever. One of the major car companies' approach with small cars was, well, we're not building a good car. Let's spend $7 billion, build a whole new car division, and 10 years from now, we're going to have the perfect car. Well, that's not true. It doesn't work that way. It won't be the perfect car in 10 years. It'll be, because everybody else will have been getting continuously better. It'll be good, but it won't be perfect. And now you won't have that idea. You won't have that mindset of change, and which is what you want. You want solutions that can constantly get better, and this is what you should teach people in Just in Time. Teach them to ask these 5 questions about every solution, and you do things very well. Actually, let me go back to this slide. I didn't really talk about it. What we're going to do here in 48 hours, we're going to set up 4 teams that are going to walk us through the 48-hour Just in Time. They're actually going to do all the work. We're going to have an operations team. We're going to have a demand team that's going to focus on sales information and the way customers buy. We're going to have a planning and control group, and I'll talk about these in a little bit more detail. And we're going to have a procurement group. These are small teams, maybe 5, 10 people at the most. And there's going to be a core group that's made up of 1 representative from each of the 4 teams. And these people are going to run around, do their thing, come back in a few hours. The core group's going to meet, make very quick decisions, and then send out the groups to continue their work. And this is what's going to happen over 48 hours. The core group is the group that's going to make the decisions because things have to be done very, very quickly. I think I have some more detail on one of these. Let me go back here a second. Tell you one thing, another point about those questions that I had. You've got to teach people to be creative thinkers. That's a very important thing, as preliminary to the 48 hour. You've got to teach people to think creatively, to come up with wild solutions, because the old ways, the old basic solutions of go get the engineer and have him design something, those don't work under Just in Time. You've got to get people thinking very creatively. And there's a great illustration of that. Back in the teens, I think it was, there was an engineer for General Motors named Charles Kettering, one of the better-known GM engineers. He really kind of spun off the whole Delco electronics division through his activities. And he was known in the company to be one of the most creative, free-thinking kind of people. And one day, he was working on a problem. This is a true story. He was working on a problem to figure out how to control engine knocking. Why do engines knock? And what he realized was that the gas was lingering. Everybody knew this. The gas lingered in the cylinders and the engine knocked. The gas didn't burn fast enough. And he said, how can I make gas burn faster? How can I make the burning happen earlier? And he was in his lab one day. It was late in the spring, and there was still some snow on the ground. And he looked out and he saw this one red flower blooming out of the snow. And he thought, well, that's an early blooming flower. That's blooming earlier than any other flower. Maybe, since I'm looking for gas to burn earlier, maybe there's something about that flower I could apply to the gas and make it work. Kind of a strange way to look at things, but he was looking at it that way. And he said, what do I know about that flower? I know it's very red. I know it's bright red. He said, maybe if I dye the gasoline red, it'll burn earlier. You know, you kind of think of that. If you thought of that and brought it to a committee, they'd say, are you kidding? Get out of here. And you wouldn't do it. But he didn't have a committee to report to. He looked around his lab, found some iodine to dye the gas red, the knocking stopped. So being an engineer, he very quickly figured out that it was the properties of the iodine that did it, but he solved the problem in a very, very creative way. He solved it in a totally creative way, and that's what you have to teach people in your plant to do. You have to teach them to brainstorm, to get together as a group and just don't criticize each other, just throw out ideas, crazy ideas, as many ideas as you can think of. A lot of ideas, improve on other people's ideas, and you'd be amazed the solutions that can come out of this kind of a process. It's a quantity approach. Maybe there's, for every 10 lousy ideas, there's one good one. So what? Yeah, that's what you're after, the one good one. So you really need to teach people to do this kind of brainstorming. The teams that I talked about, I wanted to go into a little bit more detail on. The operations team should definitely include production, since they're kind of at the heart of a manufacturing company. It should include maintenance, because you're going to run into maintenance problems. You know that maintenance is an issue in most of the plants I work in. You want to have maintenance involved. They shouldn't be excluded from this process. If you've got industrial engineering, an industrial engineer or so should be part of this, because they tend to be the keepers of the data, and they tend to understand the data that drives the plant, and just-in-time is a data-driven program. You might want to have some tooling people involved, because tooling is certainly an issue in setups, and setups are going to be a big part of this. Process engineer, if you're a larger company, you tend to have industrial engineers, process engineers, plant engineers. The process engineers should be involved in this thing, as the plant engineers should. Although we're not going to make facilities modifications, you want to make sure that you comply with any constraints if we do move anything. You should have quality involved, just as they're the ones that can criticize everything you do. Now, actually, quality is very important, because you're going to expose quality problems, and you're going to have someone who understands what can be done and what can't be done. And quality people are very good at understanding the limitations of processes. So that's the operations team. The planning and control team, these are very important people. You want to have production control involved, because they're the only ones who understand the way material moves through the plant. They're the only ones that understand this complex procedure of turning orders into demand. Your materials manager, if that's a separate person, you need to have them involved. Just-in-time is not a materials